Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz, Shauketaly.
And top of the morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And continuing with the growing concern of growing authoritarianism, of a move to sell off bits and pieces of our sovereignty. Is that what is really happening? Let's find out from a yet another perspective. We are joined here by the news editor of the Island newspaper, Mr. Shamindra, Ferdinando. Very good morning to you.
Want you, Faraz.
Now, what's all this business? The concern, the public concern is not abating, is it, in terms of ACSA so far?
For us, you must also take into consideration that President Sirisena, has assured the nation that he will not allow signing of SOFA.
Yeah.
Though ACSA has been signed in August 2017 and now it's in operation, and there's no way Sri Lanka pull out of that agreement.
Right.
So it's there. So although the Americans do not have SOFA in place, they have ACSA, which can be used by the US military to facilitate.
So then what is the essential difference then between ACSA and SOFA?
SOFA is sort of an extension where it deals with deployment of US troops,
right,
positioning of US troops,
yeah,
in a particular country. But I think for the time being, the Americans are happy with ACSA, which I must tell you, originally signed by the former Rajapaksa administration in 2007 March,
right,
for a period of 10 years, and subsequently extended by this government. Faraz, you must keep in mind that this arrangement, this ACSA,
yeah,
was entered into in August, first week of August 2017.
yeah,
as pointed out repeatedly by Iqbal Atas,
yeah,
the Sunday Times defense correspondent.
yeah.
And at that time, there was Jahaparanya. Right? It was before President Sirisena decided to withdraw from the UMP-led government. That was in 2018 October,
right,
late October. So we must keep in mind that ACSA, at the time Sri Lanka entered into ACSA, there was Jahaparanya government comprising the UNP and the SLFP. And both political parties should take responsibility for the situation today. There's no point in blaming the UMP only.
So ACSA is just to facilitate the movement of services.
Not only services for us, the US forces can use all Sri Lankan ports and airports.
With prior notice?
Yes.
Right.
And they can come in uniform, use all our facilities.
But are they accountable? I mean, do they have to check in with our immigration?
For us, when powerful militaries operate, they don't subject themselves to customs checks. You must realize that. And
so,
you know, for 3 years, from 87 July to March 1990, we had the Indian Army on our soil.
But
and
yes,
and for us, I must tell you, the Indian Air Force operated between India and Palali, India, Trincomalee, India, Batiklo, directly. I mean, we were not, the government of Sri Lanka at that time was not allowed to interfere with Indian military.
But if I put it to you that was because the Sri Lankan government openly invited the Indian forces
No,
here.
for us, that's wrong. You know, that's a blatant lie. There's no basis for that claim. That's
right,
a claim.
Yeah.
What happened was India created a situation in Sri Lanka, right, to facilitate the deployment of Indian forces here.
Right.
They forced Indian army on Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And then there's no, there's no basis for this claim that the government of President Jayajavadan invited the Indian army. No, that's not correct.
That's not correct. That's not correct. Okay. Well, you know, that's as you say, there is one school of thought that President Jayawarden did ask them to come in.
No, that's some people claim, especially the Indian media.
You mean it was
Indian
a
politicians claim
Yeah.
that Sri Lanka invited, but India caused terrorism in our country.
But is it, so therefore, the arrival of the IPKF here and a potential invitation, had it been given to the Indians, you're saying that that would have been sort of a constructive invitation, that they created the scenario so that they could be here?
Yeah, I mean, today,
A bit like constructive dismissal.
compare the situation in 1987 July, when the Indian Army arrived in Sri Lanka, and intensification of US, British, activity, intelligence activity, or whatever you call it, in Colombo, in the immediate aftermath of Easter Sunday attacks, right? So some people say that, people claim that the Western powers are involved in this situation, but I don't believe it. But that's a claim.
It's another claim.
Yeah, that's another claim, because as soon as it happened, we had, I think the American embassy issued 2 statements regarding the deployment of whatever experts and investigators and technical staff in Sri Lanka.
Right.
So interesting times, a lot of things happening in this country.
But ironically, President JR's nephew, ironically, is doing the same thing so that he can stay in power, if you think about it.
How do you justify that claim?
ACSA, SOFA, all of these is, in my mind, it is designed for the Prime Minister, whose uncle was JR, to remain in power. Just think about it, if you let me expound on my theory. Here we have a Prime Minister who is apparently the darling of the democratic West. The democratic West. I'd say the decadent West, but he's been the darling of the West. In 2014, he was off to MIT, supposedly on a long-standing invitation. He was, yeah, and to give lectures. The reported attendees at these lectures at MIT to hear the perhaps the longest-serving Sri Lankan politician at the time, the attendance was very low. And it is later said that he used his time to be trained in various matters by the Americans to fight this next presidential election, which is going to be in early part of 2015. And then you have, he himself goes on about his connections with the West and so on. Then we now have, now that he's in power, that he's got this power because President Sirisena appointed him even though he had 42 people and so on. They have advisors within the parliamentary complex, within the Prime Ministerial Office complex. MCC denied that this MCC ever had an office there until Bimal Weerawansa flashed a piece of paper and said, look, here it is. And then they all had to be quiet.
I think at that time Sakula Ratnayake denied that claim.
Well, yes, I mean, but nobody takes the blindest bit of notice about that fellow because, he's a known confidant of the Prime Minister. And even if he's given any job, we will know the people expect the Prime Minister to be behind that one. So that's on the one side. Then on another side, we have Karujaya Surya, perhaps the greatest partisan speaker ever. He's got a chappie of Sri Lankan origin, served as some secretary for Sri Lanka before, now working on the other side, paid by USA to be a consultant. Right, okay. And we've all forgotten something. remember that magic word, McKinsey? What's McKinsey doing? Advising the finance ministry, is it? And what about all these others? I'm not talking about people who are specialists in grooming and PR and all that business. Anyone can have that, provided, you know, the state isn't paying. Forget those guys, and those are also here. So when you take it and have a look at it, I am quite convinced that somewhere along the line, Mr. Wickremesinghe is relying on these foreign powers like Uncle Dickie did, right? So the same thing. For me, it's the same thing.
For us, I think it's a bit unfair.
Really?
On your part.
Which bit is unfair?
See, because is it only Mr. Wickremesinghe? Because ACSA was first signed by the previous government. So
it was,
you know, at the time
it was signed. A mere extension. No, I just want to say this. ACSA is in all essence, in essence, it is nothing more than a ship chandling agreement, if you like.
No.
A procurement.
I think for us.
But then why,
I think
if that is
all
not
our
so,
leaders for us, all political parties, because it's not fair to target one person, because I don't like to use the word target,
yeah.
but I feel all our governments, President Jayawardena, then you take about, I mean, except President D.B. Wijetunga,
yeah.
and President Premadasa also.
Yeah.
All the other leaders, you know, received various support from foreign powers, because the allegation against the previous administration of, you know, President Rajapaksa was he was too close to China. So at the same time, while having very close relationship with China, President Rajapaksa's government signed this ACSA agreement for a period of 10 years. 10 years for us. So that started it. And I must tell you,
but it was
our connection with the military, US military, really started in 1995 when President Kumar Tunga was in command. And we know that we received US training, they supplied us information, they provided us say a range of things. So these things happen. So it's,
I don't want to sound ungrateful.
But my position is, my stand is, it's not fair to blame one person or one political party, because throughout this period.
So that all this is tantamount to treason. It's treasonous. And if you indulge in treason, you should be jailed.
There was this, you know, book by the former Indian Foreign Secretary Shiv Shankar Menon, in which he accused the previous government of building a machine. And I think he called it election machine or whatever. I think election apparatus. And Chinese funding. A direct accusation that the previous government received Chinese assistance to carry out a claim by, is not a simple person. He's not an ordinary person for us. The former Indian Defense Secretary.
They would have said the same thing about Gordon Weiss.
He
made this outrageous claim about 40,000.
No, Gordon Weiss is nothing. No, when you compare with Shiv Shankar Menon.
But you mean he wrote a book?
I think for us it's high time the Parliament take responsibility for what's happening in this country and inquire into funds received by individuals as well as political parties.
I think that's a good idea.
Governments.
That's a good idea.
I say it because the former US Secretary of State, John Kerry, he's on record as having said that they spent $585 million in, I think, in Burma, Sri Lanka and Nigeria. Now, almost $600 million in 2014-2015 to change President Rajapaksa's government, right? The former US Secretary of State says it. So who received the money?
So and then there you are, you hit the nail on the head.
It's for us up to the Parliament to inquire into. And I'm telling you again, Prasad Karyavasam received this appointment. He receives a salary from US taxpayers, right? And then that was part of the agreement signed in September 2016 in Washington, and that agreement is worth 13 million US dollars. Right now, who was there?
$13 million for whom?
For the parliament of Sri Lanka. You inquire into this now. In September 2016, there was a delegation from Colombo, from the parliament. The delegation comprised the Speaker Karujaya Surya, then Sudarshani Fernandopulle from the UPFA, then Ajit P. Pereira from the UNP, and from the JHU, Karunaratna Parnavithan, and the Secretary General of Parliament. The signing took place on September 14, 2016.
Right.
Right. So 1.92 billion rupees worth agreement for scholarships, foreign visits, seminars, conferences in hotels like that. So just imagine from 2016 September to 2019, they have spent 1.92 billion rupees. Now, who received benefits? I think the parliament should explain. They owe us an explanation. How did they spend this money?
Well, you see, if you say that...
So, when they pay Prasad Karyavasam, it's part of that agreement.
No, you said, you gave a figure and you said that's what they spent in effect to to bring to an end the Rajapaksa rule.
That was regarding 585 million US dollars.
Right.
That's one thing.
Yes. Now then, in the same way, the value of the MCC Compact, whatever that means, Millennium Challenge Corporation, is $480 million.
Yes.
So, on the one side, to end the Rajapaksa regime was 500 whatever million.
In 3 countries, they spent that amount in 3 countries.
Yes, right. But over here, for one country, $480 million, and and the very nature of that thing says that it's to do with land and land matters and these challenging aspects of Sri Lankan economy. It's like after 71 years.
So what's wrong with Faraz? Now in this, see,
Faraz,
after 70 years, after 70 years,
after 70 years, don't we have any land surveys?
Why do we only concentrate on this, this US thing? Just take, just talk about this. Just.
We can do India too.
No, see this ambulance service.
Yeah.
Now, can't we at least maintain a proper ambulance service without receiving that aid from India? Our politicians buy
You're absolutely right. I quite agree with you. So after all these years,
after 70 years,
after 70 years, we don't have any land service. We don't have a commissioner of land who's capable of putting this business into place. That we are now waiting for Uncle Dickie and his Americans with their $480 million.
Why do we have a parliament? What are they doing? So,
well, they are enjoying the benefits.
Actually, for us, the civil society, I think the media, I mean, all of us should inquire into what's happening in parliament. What is going on in parliament?
Well, what is going on is simple. When you accuse them and you highlight corruption, as Newsfirst did in terms of the Section 3 of the highway, which thankfully, because they pulled out the loan, they're not doing, they'll have to go for funding elsewhere. But at the time when we highlighted the fact that Lakshman Kiriyalla, the minister in charge of the highways, was having meetings.
For us, Prime Minister Wickremesinghe recently, praise Lakshman Kiriyalla.
Oh, as he's bound to. As he's bound to. He's the fellow who sits next to him, and when he spoke of the other day, a few months ago, you can tell the closeness because the Prime Minister hit him on his shoulder and he said, "Shut up and listen." You don't do that if you don't have that close bond. You don't do that. You tried hitting the guy next door to you on the bus. And saying,
I think some time back I saw Honorable Shamindra also,
of course he did the same thing. But you're sounding like... do you know what? I want to also say this. About this ACSA, soon after it was signed, and when we highlighted this, a person from the shipping industry called me shipping security industry, and he said he was very annoyed about this. And then I suddenly realized that this one he's probably going to benefit from ACSA because, you know, he might do a bit of extra ship chandling. But he might not get the security contract because the military don't need that. But this is the point here, Shamindra, is there is a wholesale move towards eroding our sovereignty. We've been non-aligned, and long may that continue. Why? The next thing you know, the Chinese coming along and saying, well, the Indians say, well, you gave China all that, 99-year lease, can we have a little bit? And then the Americans will just stand there, just outside the territorial waters with their big, blessed aircraft carriers, and they just make one call and say, can we have a bit? And, you know, what the Donald wants, the Donald gets. What do you think?
Faraz, you know, it started some time back. It's not, you know, giving assets, I mean, ceding assets to foreigners. Started some time back. You take the Port of Colombo, one terminal managed by China, one by key private sector consortium, and one run by SLPA, and recently the government, the cabinet approved inviting India and Japan to develop the East Terminal.
Right.
So it's already there.
Right.
Right. You take Shangri-La. It was put up in land previously belonging to the Sri Lankan army.
Apparently they paid for it.
No, they paid for it. Yes. Now,
various people had commissions for it as well.
No, I don't think so, Faraz. It was a straightforward agreement.
Right.
And the previous government sold that land. And the previous government
I live
was,
for the day.
And for us, this government, the UMP, having accused the Rajapaksas of selling that land to Shangri-La, did the same. They gave another section of land to the same hotel, right? 99-year lease. So both governments, for us, we must realize.
Both governments are united in their quest to be treasonous and to impact on the common man, right?
100% true.
Right. Now then, we have a rather skeptical viewer who imagines that we may not take this question. We do take up questions, not everyone, but the ones that will drive the program. Your guest has just said that SOFA is deploying U.S. forces. Deploying in military terms means for operational purposes, although we have no empirical evidence about it. Any basic research on Wiki, on SOFA, would educate us whether it is a deployment. The Prime Minister has issued a statement to the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce and the public that SOFA has not been submitted to the Cabinet. I assume, that's the viewer, assumes that it was just a discussion level. So please educate the public on the truth.
Actually, for us, it was discussed by our Foreign Minister, Honorable Tilak Marpan, in Washington recently.
Indeed.
Yes, and he issued a statement. Subsequently, they issued a statement. And I must tell you, the SOFA agreement should be examined against the backdrop of US, India, Japan military alliance. Right? Now, if Americans made an attempt to have a military agreement with Sri Lanka sometime back, there would have been chaos. India would have definitely opposed. But today, India is part of that American alliance. You have India, Japan and US and Australia together trying to counter the Chinese expansion. So far, they need ACSA. And there's another agreement between Sri Lanka and America, under which we will not hand over any American personnel, military, political or civilian, to ICC.
Now then, yesterday it was pointed out that contrary to what some chappie said...
Tell me one thing, just one. Why did America recently gave us a big warship. Why?
Why was that?
See, they are building up Sri Lanka's capability to patrol seas. They want Sri Lanka to play a role in this region, right? That's why a warship. Now, it's the biggest ship we have now. We took it over last month.
Why?
The president, while condemning U.S. actions, complaining about U.S. actions, he was the chief guest. He was on that ship. Yeah. He sat on the commander's chair.
Yeah.
And we carried that photograph last week. So see,
nothing wrong in accepting
nothing wrong,
unless it is a Trojan horse.
Faraz, when you accept things from countries,
yeah,
in return they expect certain things.
You mean there's nothing called a free lunch?
Yes, definitely. So all the people must realize what's going on. And the
but
Chinese.
Tilak Marapana raised an important issue when he was in Washington. He went in response to the American suggestion that they can use the 1995 agreement as a sort of as a base. Mr. Marapana pointed out that you can't really do that because in '96 the Parliament passed the Diplomatic Privileges Act, and therefore such matters will have to be debated in Parliament.
Faraz, yes. do you tell me seriously? Do you take this Parliament seriously? Tell me. You know the bond scam, one of your favorite subjects.
It's not my favorite subject. It is my.
I said one of.
Yes, but what I'm saying is because it costs us so much of money.
I want to ask you, do you take this Parliament seriously? Up to today, the Parliament did not debate the bond report, right? For 2 years. It was handed over to the Parliament, I think, in early 2018.
That's
up
right.
to now.
It's just as bad. Right? And I'm sorry to say this, Governor Indrajit Kumaraswamy, but it's just as bad as the forensic audits. They're still not ready, Governor. They're still not ready. You know, this is after...
I tell you, Faraz, these people will not do anything, right? They will not do anything. They will
in terms of the bond? Or in terms of everything?
Everything, you know, you take corruption, absolutely nothing is happening.
Why are these things not being debated in Parliament?
Faraz, to talk about this lot, the Bribery Commission, it had a huge launch, a big anti-corruption plan. Who funded it? It was at Shangri-La. US said.
But the Chinese also gifted us some sort of vessel.
Why not?
Not long ago.
No,
just a few days ago.
A few days back. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a grant.
So this, in a classic case of cohesion.
That's why for us, they are forcing us to import Chinese cigarettes.
But yes, that's also quite important. Now, there's another thing. In a classic case of Koheleyanne Mallepol, we had the American ambassador saying that whilst all this was raging, ACSA and SOFA, there's a statement from the American ambassador to say, we are not building or we're not going to have a base. Nobody was talking about a blessed base. We were talking about these agreements. What base? We didn't talk about a base. And this is complete tactical move to try and shift the focus away. They're talking about bases. We're not talking bases. We're talking about these blessed agreements. Then they say, you can do it with the exchanges of letters. In that case, let's exchange a letter,
Faraz,
cancelling it
the Americans are already using Colombo. It started in, I think, in August 2018. So already started, and ACSA. I mean, it's happening.
Have you had a good morning so far, this 30 minutes?
Yes, definitely for us. With you, it's always.
But do you know what happens when you're having a good time? You run out of time. Shamindra Ferdinando, thank you very much for being on Newsline. It's been marvellous. We hope to see you again on our network and discuss this very pressing matter. I hope you cover it in great depth and all sorts of perspectives in your wonderful paper. Shamindra Ferdinando, thank you very much. And thank you very much for all the questions. I'm sorry we couldn't take them all, but, you know, we took some, didn't we? And that's the way it was. So thank you. Take care. Have a wonderful week ahead. And, of course, God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.